Hello everybody. Hopefully you can hear me. You can't see me yet. I just wanted to prepare you for things to look a little different. I'm going to just adjust the mic even. There's Quindy. All right, so here we go. Yes, there is much equipment now. Some of this was there before. You just couldn't necessarily see it in the view. So this cam is kind of useless, right? So let's switch off of that and see what we have now. Not enough light is one thing we have. I'm gonna turn the lights on that would have glared in the other camera. Oh, and I totally missed a light. Excuse me. So all the behind the scenes tech is different too. I'm on different hardware. It's the same software, but for Mac instead of PC. So if there are any glitches, let me know and I'll see if tech support is in a meeting or not and can come and help me. I tested a bunch with recording, but I didn't test streaming on my own channel, although I hope to start doing that now. So I'm hoping this is an improvement. It's still a little ad hoc. The new mini camera is on a very bouncy holder. So if I touch it at all or shake the desk, you may see a little shake, and I apologize for that in advance if that happens. But we got palette cam now. The light's not amazing on the palette cam, but what I'd love if you guys let me know what you think. And if you're watching this later on YouTube, feel free to leave a comment under the video. This will be on Reaper's YouTube channel, which Quindy is going to put up in the chat. So Reaper Miniatures. Or, send me a private message there or here. I think I'm bird with a brush pretty much everywhere. But let's look at some minis and see if you think they look any different. So let's see. Last week I was working on this guy, and I'm going to work on him a little bit more this week. So I think he looks better now. But we can do a comparison. Now, there's not as much light as there usually is, so it's not a completely fair comparison, but that's what he looked like on my original setup. And here he is on the new setup. And I am very regretful that I did not do the door metal as iron, but that is something I may fix later. I keep walking by him on the shelf. One of you, Turjan, I think? Not 100% sure. I'm forgetting now. I'm sorry. Recommended that, and you were 100% correct. Because every time I see him on the shelf, I'm like, oh, I have regret. It just, everything kind of blends in when you don't have a lot of light and whatnot. So that's who I was working on last week. This is the non-metallic parts I had previously painted with the Reaper Super Washes. And I'm going to goof around with those some more and goof around with that same style of metallics that I did last week. So I got this guy ready to go. When I was testing all my video and whatnot, I painted the black on him to see if my angles were right and my distances were right. This guy is mostly ready to go, but we gotta do the dark base on the gold/bronze. And then I'll just show some other miniatures from recently. It is very hard for me to see a lot of things now because of all the stuff. But, so this was the miniature of the month last month, the 3D print. This is the one I painted for the web store with non-metallic metal. And where I made a boo-boo and still have not fixed it. So hopefully you can see some of the detail, like the how I was trying to do like a burlap sack texture and whatnot. Hopefully you can see that a little better in this view. I mean, let me know if it seems any different to you. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe you like the other one better. I would love to know what you think. And then this is the one that I painted on stream over 2 or 3, probably 3 streams to kind of do the tabletop version of it. But I was also iterating in that I was looking at things I didn't like as well on this one, and I felt like I needed a little more saturation, especially in the focal point of, around here. So I made her clothes and her skin a little more saturated in the on-stream version. And Now we'll compare another pair that I kind of did the same thing with, just because I still have them around and they're different colors, so we can see how those look on stream. This was the web store version of the Halloween miniature, and this was the kind of quicker version that I did if you wanted just to get more off the shelf colors. I did a lot of color mixing on this one, and I know that's not everyone's jam. I don't always like it, to be honest. I had fun doing it with this one, but I don't want to do it all the time, so I totally am not judging. So I wanted to, just grab some off the shelf Reaper colors and see if I could kind of duplicate the look, but also in a faster version. So that was that one. There's no comments, you guys. Is anyone there? Is anyone other than Quindy there? I'm all worried now that it looks terrible and you hate it. And then this is the black and white old movie vampire, complete with dust. Oh, see there, that's what happens if I shake everything. Dust off some of that with a soft brush. And let's see what he looks like on the old version. Oh, why is he not focusing? That's weird. He should focus. He's got too much background stuff, I guess. So that's kind of just looking at some different figures with the new setup. And now I will start to work on some of these guys. So with this one, I did, I think you can kind of see it here. It was a blue-black, and then I just started adding metallic into it to layer up the metallic. So I wanted like a slightly bluish sheen to them because all of these browns and yellows or everything are very warm. And I think that does work well. I think that between the color contrast and the finish between the two different kinds of paint contrast, it works really well. And that's where the door sticks out not looking as good because it's all warm. It's a warm metal and a warm brown, and it all just kind of fades together. And even though the metallics are shiny, it's kind of not enough contrast to really pull out the details and make it fit in with the rest of the figure. So, and then I also, when I was setting up the other guy, I realized that I had missed a bunch of the buckles. So I did a couple buckles, I think. Somewhere there are buckles. He's got a lot of little bibs and bobs. I swear I had done some buckles. But now I'm not seeing any. Okay, I guess I'm just hallucinating. So I can continue with him. I also just want to, there was a few spots where I didn't use the super washes. I hadn't finished up yet. I cleaned up the skulls because I'd gotten stuff on them. So now we can, the door itself is wood, and then you can see the wood texture. I think, you can see the wood texture that's been sculpted in. And then it's got metal accents, details, bolts, and strengthening whatnots. I mean, he's burly, but lifting up a full metal door would be maybe too much even for this guy. I don't know. Maybe he's that tough. But I didn't get to the weapon last time. The weapon doesn't look fun, but we'll get there. We'll get there. So what I was thinking I would do is paint this character. So this character already has like some warm and cool variation going on. It's got like the reddish orange armor is warm, but then the green skin is cool. This is kind of warmish. So it doesn't really lean me either way on the metal, like building a contrast or doing something interesting that way. So what I thought might work well is just do it straight from black. So it's more neutral. Oh, wait. No, I think I was going to do this guy a little with a warmer, kind of a brown black to sort of try to see if that would make his gear look more worn. And then this one I would do with neutral steel. And then we can kind of compare the three. I mean, it's not a true comparison would be I repeat the same, I have the same color scheme on 3 different miniatures, and then the variable is the metal. But it still is a way to experiment and see different things. We don't always have to do it like exactly full science. We can kind of experiment with some things in between figures. And he's got, well, I cleaned up the teeth and the eyes, and I can do a little with the super washes on those. And to begin with, I'm going to put the base color for the gold on here. And what I was thinking for that is, since purple is the color complement of yellow, purple often makes a very nice shade color for gold or other yellow metals. So I would do that, like a blackish purple, as the foundation for the yellow metal there. But first I have to lay that in. So last time I used these, and despite soaking them and spritzing them with rubbing alcohol, I could not get all of the metallics off there, which is highly irritating to me. So I don't think, as handy as those are in shape and to keep on my desk, I don't want to deal with that anymore. So I bought, you can get these either as a spot plate or as a palette. This is like a little mini version of the ceramic palettes that Anna and I use, and this is ceramic. It came with a little lid, which would probably help if you were, painting, you got a phone call, but I always have my sponge, so I would just put my sponge over it in that case. So it's basically a little ceramic tray. I put it in my other desk for doing like watercolor art projects, stuff like that. So I think I'm going to see if I can make that work instead. The holes or the wells are just a little smaller than I wish they were. Hopefully that red isn't going to be too terrible, but I'll put that up there and get a purple color ready. So these are the two purples that we have in the paint kit, which I have not done swatches of, so we cannot see how saturated they are. One day I will look through those paints and find the ones I haven't done the swatches for and finish the swatches. But in the meantime, we'll just do quick and dirty this way. I'm pretty sure the Imperial Purple is the duller one. But then since I'm mixing with black, maybe I don't want the dullest one. That is a good question. We add a little water, draw it out against the white, and we get more information. How about the color? Do that on the Imperial Purple. Oh, and I was wrong. I think the Imperial Purple is, or no, I mixed up which was in which position. That was the Royal Purple. Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Imperial, I think. Just because of the other colors on him. And then I also need my black. So I apologize for missing last week, Sunday. I didn't even do anything particular. I kind of tweaked my back. And I was doing all my stretches and whatnot to try to fix it. And Monday, it just seemed sensitive enough that I was like, I think that sitting in the same position for a couple hours without being able to get up and walk around or do stretches or whatever is kind of pushing my luck on potentially irritating it more. So I'm not going to do that. That's weird. Why am I seeing a lot of blue in there? Okay. But you can see how powerful the black is because I put a whole bunch of purple in. And we're not seeing any purple yet. I should have started with the purple. Generally, you should start with the color that has less tinting strength, the color that's not as strong. So I'm going to do my trick I did last time, I think, and pull some of that out so I can add more purple. Because I don't feel like the foundation for a goldy bronze color has to be as dark as for a steel. Still looks pretty darn dark, but let's see where we are. It's getting there. We'll add more purple. I vastly underestimated how strong that black was. So I see something in the chat about Anne in a book. Can someone fill me in? Because this sounds like exciting news that I would love to know about Anne's success. Where am I going here? Yeah, we'll call that good. Pendrake says Anne used to take stretch breaks at the half point or so precedent established. Oh, I may have to do that. I do have my Be Back Soon screen. And I could just leave the sound on. Oh, some of my stretches I do have to go to a doorway or lie down for. But, all right, so I also have a much bigger screen. I will hopefully be able to more easily tell. Oh, she put her book on Kindle today. That's great. I will hopefully be able to tell better if I'm out of focus. But I also, let's take that out of the scene. That'll probably help. And him. Can't always look while I'm looking, as it were. So I think the color is a lot better on this, at least. I know it's a little more pulled out, and I don't have the ability to go in and like to zoom in and zoom out. We were looking, but the problem with Zoom, the app being called Zoom, is you can kind of see where I'm going. They're trying to look up things with, device, how to zoom. Even if you say zoom in, you still just get a lot of things about how to go on Zoom calls, which is not at all what I'm trying to do. Like, not at all. So, we have not mastered that part yet. But I would like to hope that the resolution and color are improved enough that the fact that I'm pulled a little further out is okay. So Anne's book is called East of the Sun under the pen name A.E. Becker, and Quindy will provide us with the link. So if we have Kindle, we can go check it out, which I do have Kindle. Do I read much? I do not. I am enjoying audiobooks for getting me back into reading. But I have yet to re-engage my attention span enough to do more reading. But I at least know more about why that's happening. Don't know more about why this paint is seeming kind of thin, because I did not put water in. So that is peculiar. Hey, Static Display. Thanks for joining us. I guess the thing about purple being a little bit transparent is going to be a factor here, and I will have to do 2 coats, unlike with black. But I think it will be worth it to explore what we get with the complementary shadow color. I don't think my mic picks up background sounds well enough for you to be hearing a cat going nuts on some kibble behind me, but that is what's happening. That is the downside of my face camera arrangement not being as good, is that now when a sad little cat wants snuggles, you won't be able to show her off to you as easily. But this may just be like a temporary stopping point on the way to figuring out better solutions, but we'll see. I guess I need some feedback on how well this worked to see if it's worth the trouble of pursuing even more elaborate solutions. Or options, I mean. A solution exactly, it's upgrading, not trying to fix a problem. Because I think I had at long last, finally ironed out most of the technical problems that used to plague the stream. I don't think I did my usual thing where sometimes I think about, what can I talk about today, and I don't think I thought about that because I was so distracted with trying to, get the camera angles right and fix my buttons and everything. Let's see, we went to see Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania yesterday. And then when we walked into the theater, we're walking down towards our room, our theater room, and I'm looking at the titles of the other movies, and one of them was like Dungeons and I'm like, is that the Dungeons and Dragon movie? Like, that's not out yet, is it? And it turns out that there was like an Amazon Prime member preview thingy, which, like, my husband is an Amazon Prime member, so I'm like, why did you not hear about this? Because I would much rather be at that movie. I was not excited about Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and it lived up to my lack of expectations. Which I don't think it's a terrible movie. It's just stuff with like time travel and multiverse and all. Like, I tend to find that irritating unless everything is very well defined and I'm not just sitting there asking a bunch of follow-up questions. And that's kind of, I get annoyed when I feel like I'm not getting something, and I felt like I wasn't getting stuff. So I think that's me. Like, I feel the same way about poetry most of the time. And plenty of people love poetry. So I am not saying that it is a bad movie and you shouldn't see it. I'm just saying it was not what I like in a movie or a Marvel movie. It wasn't snarky enough to distract me from things that were annoying me. Snarkiness is my favorite aspect of many Marvel movies and many other movies. I'm not saying I only watch snarky movies. Just that I enjoy a good snarky movie. And I'm pretty sure we're getting plenty of that in the D&D movie. So I could have been at that. But we will wait and go. We have plans to go with our D&D group anyway. So I guess it would have been mean of us to go without them. Chris says, I just hate time travel. Yeah, it raises so many questions unless they very carefully establish how this works and live within those parameters. But yes, there are very few books or movies or whatever that involve significant time travel where I don't get kind of irked. It's just not my deal. I feel like there are a couple that I'm okay with it, and I'm just not thinking of what they are right now. But well, that's a different side cat. So far, that does not look like it's leading up to Golden Bronze, but we shall see. We shall see if I can make it happen. Or maybe I'm wrong, because I haven't done this exact technique before, but when I showed you this last time, this is the method of, you start with like the way I learned it was with an ink, but I like matte shadows for metallics. So you start with a dark color and then add in progressively more metallic, and you like build your shadows in as you build up the lighter, more metallic-y parts. And when we did it with ink and we used different colors, you can get some really neat effects with different colors of inks versus different colors of metallics. So I feel like it should work. But that doesn't mean I picked exactly the right color combination, because sometimes stuff that seems like it should work in theory does not. And that's okay. That's why we test things. Or just try things and iterate and try again if it didn't work. Just want a little more coverage on some of those areas so that it is fully dark purple. Pendrake, the best time travel treatment I ever read made the point that there is no such thing. Go back in time, you just created an alternate reality. Which then I need you to define your parameters for alternate reality. I mean, not you, the material. But yes, I think that's the branching probabilities idea, which is kind of in, there is alternate timelines or branching probabilities or whatever in the Marvel, because I guess that's why, Multiverse of Madness and whatnot, which I was also disappointed with, but that was more for character reasons. Lately, I've really been enjoying the shows more than the, I forgot he has a little earring, more than the movies. But, TV shows get a little more time to kind of create the characters and build the world and all that kind of stuff. So I don't think that that's weird for me to like TV shows better than movies. All right, we'll call that good. We should let that dry just for a minute, and I'll grab that guy. Oh, I brought the snowman over too, although I don't anticipate working on those, but just to see if we can see the cool versus the warm white shading a little better on the white. And then they both have the same color base, which is a less blue. And they have different colors in the shading on the fur. Real physics kind of supports the idea of parallel universes just as real as this one. Curse 13, I also hate that because then how did the alternate reality come to be? Did all matter in the universe just get duplicated? I think you and Pendrake are going to have to hash that out. I'm definitely not any sort of authority on that topic. Alright, so I'm looking through my super washes. Got this bone wash. I think that would be pretty good to dirty up his teeth a little. And then also that other guy has some bones on him. Param Underhill, you have so many Poke Tools. It is true, I do kind of have a vast array. Well, Reaper started doing kind of the collectible ones, so I had to get all of those. So these are from, Halloween, ReaperCon 2021, ReaperCon 2022. These were the classic. Well, I did buy extra of these, or mooch extra of these. Buy and mooch, I think. Once you use them, I don't want to like pause and wipe all the stuff off. So I just kind of wipe them off, and then I don't want to use it again immediately because it could get some wet paint in the next color. So I kind of go between them. I bought this one from a booth at ReaperCon one year. Let's see, there we go. It's kind of dragony. I like dragons. And then this is the Crow's Nest Poke Tool that guests who have been on the show and lucky people in the audience can win one of these. But some of them have thinner pins in them, which is useful for some things. And then sometimes the thicker diameter pin is useful for some things. Quindy is providing the link to the Halloween and ReaperCon Poke Tools that are still available. So if anyone is sad that they missed those, you didn't miss them. So you got your chance, Param Underhill. Pendrake TG, quantum physics is weird. Brains, BRANES, is a search term. So I'm going to thin it down just a little, and when I want to maintain the property where it kind of rolls off some of the upper parts and settles more in the crevices to give you that sort of one coat shading deal, I thin the super washes with this. If I want them to act more like a glaze with an even coating surface, I thin them with water. And you can kind of get a split the difference one too, so, where you use Reaper's wash medium. Cursed is aware in a cursory manner. I'm just not sure how to relate the math to the reality, and it's very frustrating. And Pendrix is the same, and I can't even do basic math, so you're both way ahead of me. Math is a dirty word. I mean, it's a 4-letter word after all. So I just don't want him to look like he's been to the dentist, because he's not a guy who goes to the dentist as often as I do. I am that person who does the stuff the dentist tells you to do. I brush my teeth at least 3 times a day. I floss once or twice a day. I always wonder if it's just like astonishing to the hygienists and stuff. They met that one person who does what they're supposed to do. No, I'm actually kind of compulsive. I'm not saying I'm like wonderful. At this point, it is. I can't do the show unless I brush my teeth. It's like, you can't smell my breath. Like, I always brush my teeth before I give in-person classes. But it's like, no, it'll bug me. I don't know if it's going to bug anyone else, but it's going to bug me. So I need to do it. I may not have made enough of this, but I'll stretch it out. The super washes were also, see, I touched it. Something, if this is working, let us know, and we will buy a sturdier camera holder thing. This was, my husband had this for just for putting up a webcam when we do D&D. And we're all really looking at the map more anyway, so it doesn't matter if his face cam is ideal. There we go. I might dot a little more in the eyes later. We'll see how it dries. Oh, that is the part that I'm really bad at with these one coat paints, is that I will miss parts, and it's much more challenging than with like just straight up opaque paint to come back in and add in, you know, go over the parts that you missed and not have it look funky. Quindy thinks things are clearer. Yay, I'm glad somebody likes it. So that's the skulls. And then I also wanted to pick a bright color for this guy's eyes. And I see now that we don't have orange. We got this red. I feel like it needs to be orange though. So, you know how we get orange is we mix yellow and red. And these are very good mixing colors. So these were out at ReaperCon. I think I started to say this and I forgot. And they are not currently available. You can experiment with something similar if you get Reaper clear colors. So anything that's like, it's called clear yellow, clear red. And you use that brush on sealer, which is the medium part of Reaper paint. You'll get a similar effect. It won't be exactly the same. It won't be quite as pigmented, I don't think. But it's a similar effect. And there are other, you know, there's lots of one-coat things. There's contrast, there's speed paints. Viejo just came out with Express without an E. What did they... It was Magic something, Potions. I don't remember what the other company called theirs. Apparently, most of them are dyes, and I think the Reaper ones are probably pigments, so they may not behave exactly the same. I personally like things that are pigments. Gives you some flexibility. I mean, I have to assume that the people who are mixing these out of dyes are choosing dyes that are more light fast, because that's one of the problems with dyes is like if you've ever written with a ballpoint pen, sometimes you come back like a year later and the writing looks faded. That's dye. That's a very common property of dye. So Param Underhill is wondering where the camera is located relative to my head. It feels like we're seeing through your own eyes with the angle. So I will show you where all the stuff. So this is the camera, the new camera. This is the old camera that is now showing the palette view. And then there's a bunch of lights to try to make it so we can see things. But that was one thing that I was excited about with the, you know, changing up the camera, is that it might allow you to see more from my point of view and see where the brush is and stuff a little better. So that was a lot of paint to mix just to make his eyes orange. But maybe I can use it on one of those other guys for something. Because these orcs are super fun, but they have very tiny eyes that even I don't want to attempt to paint with the pupil and the sclera and all that good stuff. Could I use the orange for something? I feel like making his like leather little accessory things orange would be super weird, so I will not in fact be doing that. Let's go with the metallic on this guy, the bronze. So I mostly use, unless I've planned out a color scheme in advance or I'm trying to match something, I usually use colors from the Learn to Paint kits and expansions. So I have Dragon Bronze in that set, so Dragon Bronze is what we're using. So this is my original pool of the purple and black, which I'm going to add just a little bit of water to in case it started to dry up. But the nice thing about these deep wells like this is it does slow the evaporation of paint. Like if you put it out flat or something with big wells like this, it will evaporate much more quickly. And now I need some of these excessive pokey tools. So I'm going to be taking some of that metallic and putting it into the other thing. But it does now occur to me that this is a giant pool of this because I had to do that to get enough purple in. So I'm going to take some more of that paint out. Green users thinks the color looks better. I hope so, because it really used to aggravate me. I should have picked something where I'm doing blending, because the way the blending looked also used to aggravate me kind of a lot. But well, that will just be something to look forward to for next week. Hey, Rathmore TV. With some very cute emojis. So now I'm essentially making kind of a dark purple metallic. And I will put that on top, but not everywhere. It now occurs to me that I need I like to use a separate pot for metallics, or separate water pot for metallics, so that I don't get little shiny flakes in my non-metallic things. I even have a separate sponge to wipe my brush on. I mean, it's not crucial, like it won't always cause a problem, but just in case, I figure it doesn't hurt to do. I have a lid for that water pot, so it can just live on my desk for those moments when I need to paint metallics, and I wasn't expecting to. So I don't want to put this everywhere. I mean, I want to keep some of those shadows the pure purple color. That's what he's layering. I'm not going to worry about those little bolts or nails or whatever they are right now too much. I'll put the brightest color on those a little, because they're so small. That's really what you're going to see anyway. that was me stopping to check the paint load on the brush, which is a very important thing to do, especially when you're painting tinier things. You don't want the paint to flood and go where you don't want it, but you also want to make sure you have enough that it does come off the brush and get the job done. So figuring out how much paint to have on your brush for different things is kind of something that will make painting much less frustrating. This first one isn't going to look like that much, I don't think. It's just sort of establishing the metal areas. I think we have gone to movies previously as Prime members. There was something we got to see. What is it? Something bomb. It was like the 80s, and there was a whole sneaking somebody out of the East Berlin. There was a ton of violence. I'm totally blanking on the name of the movie or the name of the actress who's in it. But we got there so late that we had to sit in the front row. And we often sit a lot closer than most people at the movies because my husband's eyesight isn't great. But that was just too much. Like, I had to lean my head all the way back, and there were parts of the movie that I missed. And eventually when it came out on streaming or video or whatever, I'm like, well, I think I need to watch this movie again because, like, I know that I missed a bunch of stuff that was happening in that movie. Anne has said the metallics usually have a different resin. That would make sense since they have to support the metallic flake. I would be interested to know more about that. I might have to ask Anne some questions. Rathmore, when I was using a wet palette, I found that metallics were very hard to clean out of the porcelain if I let it dry. Yeah, they really... why did my light just go off? That was super weird. I didn't touch anything. Yeah, it cleans off the porcelain better than plastic, at least. So there's that. He was white. And I was checking in my mind whether it was primed or if this was a white Bones. And this was the newer Bones USA. And then primed white. Because I was using the super washes. So those are paints designed, like contrast paints, to go over a white coat. And then the pooling of the paint kind of creates the shadows. You can do that over zenithal. I think, was this guy a similar thing with zenithal? This was different paint, but I think this was it? Nope, this was white. I had a few that I did zenithal on. I actually like treating this more like watercolor. So, like, we'll look at the skulls here. If I decide that there are parts that aren't dark enough, and I think I will, I'm going to go in with darker paint and make them darker. So I kind of want to start with my lightest color and then add shading as necessary. This allows me to keep an area like these skulls very light in color, even if, the way I sprayed the zenithal, they would have ended up mostly black, because it's hard to explain. What is happening with my light? Okay, that is super weird. Yeah. Am I touching something down below? Yes, I think that's what it is. All right, I think I've got, yes, there's a thing a bunch of stuff is plugged into, and that one had gotten knocked loose when we put the other lamp on it. So hopefully the weird ghost light changing will stop changing. Not the Man from U.N.C.L.E. I swear there was a bee in it, and it's a very famous blonde actress. This is very helpful. This is how I remember things. It was a great movie. I mean, especially if you lived through the 80s. It was a fun evocation of the Okay. My lamp thing didn't work. What is happening? I will have to get my husband to look at that. I'm going to try. Nope. Okay, hold on just a minute. I'm going to turn the sound off. And I will be right back. All right, let's see if that works better. I unplugged something else that I think was annoying it. Um, and we will. Atomic Blonde. Yes, thank you. That was it. Good movie. I do recommend it. I just don't recommend being in the front row and having to crick your neck to watch it. Had good music too. And I don't know if we saw any other movies on free passes, but we did see parts of movies. When Guardians of the Galaxy came out, I guess they were kind of maybe a bit worried that because a lot of people didn't know who they were, which honestly, I didn't know who they were when it came out. They did this thing where you got passes to go see like the first 16 minutes. So we got that. Well, it wasn't the first 16 minutes. It was like the jailbreak scene, I think. It worked out really well. It was like a little snippet of the movie that kind of could stand alone. They did it again with Doctor Strange. And there I think they kind of did clips or like did a bit of an edit. And it didn't work as well on that. It wasn't as cohesive narratively. It was still like fun to go and everything, but it wasn't quite as cool as a standalone thing as the Guardians of the Galaxy one had been. And then just because I feel like it, I'm going to make this decorative part. With the bronze instead of steel. Oops, apologize. I touched the camera with my visor. Definitely one of the downsides of this setup. Alright, so do I go straight to the bronze? I don't think I do. I think I do another in between. But maybe I'll just mix a little bit of this in here. And then make another pool of the bronze. Which, I mean, I do think that there definitely is a difference with metallics for me. I don't like using them on a wet palette. They get all gooey really quickly. So when I do, well, if I'm just doing something quick and I do it on a wet palette, I put out a drop and then, you know, as soon as it starts being weird or unpleasant to work with, I just get fresh. So I don't expect that pool to last me an extended amount of time. Where here, you know, this has been out longer than I would probably find works on a wet palette, and it's still fine because, you know, there's no water interaction, so it's staying more stable, I guess. I don't know. I don't know all the physics stuff like Anne does. My paint knowledge is kind of from painters for painters level. Like what we need to know about pigments and binders and whatnot to make the best use out of our tools. And, well, I mean, I guess I just know pigment fun facts because I want to. But there are some pigment fun facts. We made pigments out of some weird things. I was just looking up manganese actually because I was watching a video where they were showing like the color mixing difference between using their manganese blue, I think it was Old Holland oil paints, and ultramarine. And I'm like, well, okay, that's a bit weird because you can't get manganese blue anymore. So I wanted to confirm that I was correct, that they are not selling real manganese blue pigment, and they're not. It's phthalo and phthalo. So they mix phthalo blue with phthalo green to get a cool blue that's a similar hue to manganese. Because I've heard people sing the praises of the original manganese, but it is considered toxic enough that they decided to just stop making paint out of it completely. Vermilion's the same. If you see anything named vermilion, it is not vermilion. That original vermilion was made with cinnabar, which is very toxic. So hardly anyone does that anymore. Whereas lead paint, even though, you know, lead obviously has some issues too, you can still get lead white in America. I don't think you can get it in Europe. But you certainly pay for the privilege. And it is, I mean, you know how lead is heavy, right? Like, it makes a difference even for a tube of paint. Like, I have a tube of lead white, and it has heft. I mean, you could probably brain someone with it. It's got to be more than double the weight of other paint tubes that I have. But it is a slightly different color, and it behaves differently. Like we tend to think of the properties of our paints being about the binder or what the paint mixer did or whatever, but the pigments influence stuff. Pigments are weird little idiosyncratic beasties, and they are part of what makes one paint different from another. So they affect transparency. There's the weight is different. Dry times are different. We don't notice it in acrylics as much, but that's something that, you know, oil painters will like to use certain colors in the initial stages because they're going to dry faster. Earth colors, I think, are ones that dry faster, and then titanium white dries slower. I don't know the speeds on all of them because I mean I oil paint a little bit, but not enough to. Oh wait, that's the other gold. Where is my bronze? I'm going to shake it again because the thing about the little flakes is that I think they follow suspension more quickly. And if you wanted to thin this, which might not be a totally terrible idea, but I'm not going to, because we're trying to get a quicker effect. If I were painting this to be more of a display miniature, I would thin this down. I would use this same stuff, again, the brush on sealer, because it's, well, it is thicker than water, but I guess it's also more dense. I don't know. One of you people who knows chemistry. Anyway, it holds the flake in suspension better, where if you mix a pool, you know, you mix a few drops of metallic with water, it's going to start falling out of suspension, and the flakes are going to be at the bottom of your pool, and you're going to have to stir it up all the time if you want to keep things distributed. And you don't have to do that as much if you use medium as the mix. I see that I missed adding this middle stage to the little part I decided would be decorative. And that's actually probably the part that's going to show this bronze the best. Now I'm going to start hitting those little nails or rivets or whatever they are. So they shine a bit more and stand out from the background surface. So here I'm really trying to catch edges and parts that would be reflecting more light and looking shinier. Like a corner is a good place to do that. This upper kind of edge that would be reflecting the light more. And those little rivets are definitely the kind of place that would reflect a little extra light. The top of the handle here. So that's where you're getting into the shaded metallo part of the shaded metallics, which you can do the other way. When I painted the overladen hench person, I did the shaded metallics where you start with the metallic and then add the shading. So since I had done that recently, I thought this would be a fun thing to do. Oh, I'm not sure if he's a little close and he's getting out of focus. I moved it so I could pull the lighter color towards where I want the most light, which hopefully will make the edge where the previous layer, where it's meeting the previous layer, look like a nicer transition. Oh, is a layering. I think that's everything for him. I mean, he still needs the steel, but I think that's all of the bronze color. I guess for fun, we'll stick him under the old can. Will he focus is a different question. We'll stick him under there. Now, in fairness to the old camera, that this is less light than it used to have. One of the lights I had doesn't work with density. Doesn't work with the monitor being where it is now. So we had to bid farewell to that light. Well, okay, it's still there. It's just sticking straight up in the air and would shine in my eyes instead of down at the table, which would not be at all helpful. So I guess why don't I finish up his steel? So blade steel is kind of the mid-level, value steel color that's in the orange paint kits. So I will use that. And then I was doing him with just black. So that we'll be able to compare one that has a warmer foundation and one that has a cooler foundation with more like neutral. Although this is a slightly warm steel, I don't have honed steel to compare it to. But let's see what this one is. Yeah, this is more of a cool or neutral steel. And I think you can kind of see what, like, if you had to say which of these is browner, you would say this one. And that makes it a little warmer. So I already did the black coat. I'll skip straight ahead. I possibly didn't put enough paint in there, but the areas are pretty small, so I'm hopeful. I can just kind of flip through that pretty quickly. Gonna need a slightly bigger brush for his sword, though. here I kind of have to think about where I want it, where I want to have more shadow and more light. I think I kind of want to have more light going up there, and coming up here, up on the top of this. And then I still have the flat of the blade to decide. And there, I'm gonna pick where I want the smaller plane first, so I can do the opposite on the larger plane. So I'll put the lightest part on this curve. Same thing on this side. Then I kind of want to put the lightest part on this plane in different places than that. So if I oppose those, it will add to the sense that it's shiny. Because we'll have something light against something dark. It being a flat makes it slightly more challenging to do the layering with fewer jumps, which is what I'm trying to do, since this is, you know, as a one coat miniature, is not supposed to be a labor of love, but a little more of a get it done. I'll just use vertical strokes to break up the edge. Oh, but I do want more light up there. Oh, and he's got a dagger. Which maybe is supposed to be sensibly sheathed, but I have chosen to portray him in a different way. And I really didn't put enough black out. I want just a little, actually I want just a little bit of water even. I think my black might be a little thick, I don't know. Now there's probably too much, but such is the way of life. So if anyone joined us a little later, I've got, and you've been here before, I've got a bit of a different setup today. I'm trying a new camera in hopes that the colors and the detail look a little better. Because I have been very frustrated. I don't know about you all, but I have been very frustrated by the way it looks. But I also have a screen where I can see things better. I dialed the chat font up to 1,000,000 so that I could, well, not 1,000,000. I think they really only give you like 4 or 5 options on Twitch. They need to recognize that there are old people on Twitch. So I'm trying to catch the edges because having it shiny there will look natural and also just cool. I don't think I necessarily worked out the best method for this particular sword for where to put the light in the dark, but that will be something I can consider doing better next time with the scimitar. Tricky shape. Can't do my usual opposing of the planes quite as easily. And now just the straight steel, which that is getting just a little thick. So there I used water instead of, I told you to use medium, but I used water instead because I wasn't trying to change the transparency, I was trying to change the consistency. So we talk about thinning and we kind of conflate two things, because sometimes you're trying to do one and sometimes you're trying to do the other and sometimes you're trying to do both. But it's good to think of those as two separate things because the answer isn't always the same. So if your goal is transparency, medium can often be a better choice. But if your issue is consistency, then water may be what you need. Didn't do it on the bronze, but I think I am going to go up to a lighter steel color for the sword. I mean, it's a bigger object. It's, kind of prominent part of the characterization. Making it extra shiny is a good plan, I think. Where was that silver I was waving around before? Filigree silver. I have a super light one, but I think that's too much for this guy. I'll just use this filigree silver. I feel like I have a little more space with the setup too. I might even be able to switch to my preferred palette, but I mean that one. This one fits well in the space still. Not that I'm using it much today because we're doing the one coat paints. I didn't think about that when I was prepping. I was like, well, I should have those. I should have ceramic palettes ready in case. And I'm glad that I did. It is harder for me to reach some things without making everything vibrate and whatnot. And then it's like I picked out this desk a few years ago when we did our floors and we renovated and stuff. Well, just the floors really. And my husband hated the old desk, so when it had to get moved to make space for the floor installation, he just destroyed it and threw it outside. So I had to go pick out a new desk. And I like this desk, but it turns out that there is an aspect of it I didn't think about when I was picking a hobby desk, so it's this top is glass and then there's like a metal edge that's separated slightly from the glass, which makes it really hard to do anything kind of clip on, as many lights and accessories for things are. And we tried bolting something like that to there's also like a little extra shelf. We tried bolting something like that to the extra shelf and I could see it bowing down the glass the way, like, if you have a bookshelf and there's too much heavy stuff on it. And I'm like, I really don't think that's a great plan, safety-wise. So we didn't have that option. And Red Grass is coming out with this fancy light, which I mean, I'm gonna have to think about because I love the thought of the fancy light, but it's like here it's gonna be like $200, which is just a little bit crazy, if not a lot crazy. So that's kind of the idea of getting some value variation, but you still have the shininess of metallics. So it's like doing non-metallic metal, but with metallics. But let's compare these. So this is like the neutral one where I use black. And we'll compare it to his little accessory things. I don't know if I can get these two guys close enough. But his accessory things I did with like blue black. And I feel like I can see the difference. And it's like a slightly different effect. I like the blue black for him because all his other stuff is so warm. But that's that. So he's actually almost pretty much done. I don't love the sand, but I don't know if I care enough to do anything about it. I think we might give it a dry brush of white, but I'm going to stick with the metallics for a minute. This guy, I was going to do that same technique, but with like a warm brown. So I would walnut brown. Walnut brown might even be too dark, I think. So I've got ebony flesh, which is a really dark brown. I think I'm gonna. So the base is with black, but for adding the metallic, I think I'm gonna use the ebony flesh. And I'm remembering now that there are still a couple parts to do the superwash on him with, but I think I can reach those after. So I'm not going to worry about it. And that will be the same blade steel. So I'm hoping that the brown kind of gives the impression that, you know, his stuff is dirty. He's not taking great care of his stuff. He's too busy with the pillaging and whatnot. But will it work? I don't know. It might not. It might be weird. Let's find out. Do some of these smaller bits first. I should do it the other way probably and figure out if the color works on the sword, and if it doesn't, I could just repaint it black. Start over. But I'm kind of committed to us having the comparison for 3 different metal shadow colors with the same metallics. These things are triangles, so they're short of planes, which will make deciding which parts are lighter a bit easier when we get there. It does have a lot of these spikes though. Very committed to the being spiky thing. And this is my darkest metallic, so I do kind of want to put this anywhere that I don't want to look like it's in complete shadow. And I've sort of made bronze, but we'll see how that... We'll see what it looks like when we get, you know, a little more silver in the mix. If you do this with a more transparent thing like the inks, or maybe even the superwashes would work for this, you can kind of make alternate colored metallics a little bit. Alternatively, you can get something like, well, I don't know if Sophie Silver is still around. They has metallic medium, but even just a really light silver, you can kind of use that and ink or whatever to make your own sort of satin colored metallic type colors. In the event that there is a particular color that you really want to have that you can't find anywhere else. Or if you've got you're doing a travel kit of paints because you're coming to ReaperCon or something, and you need to save space. You guys are still quiet today. I guess the whole alternate universe time travel paradox annoyance is too thought-provoking. So we've had kind of a resurgence of winter weather. I probably should have gone back to the snow, people. It's been like freeze warnings every day for more than a week now. I'm hoping it doesn't kill all of the shoots and flowers and everything that had prematurely started to come out in the previously too warm weather. But our other cat is still very excited about spring. I don't know where it's from, but years ago I heard the quote, it's spring and a young man's heart turns to love. And around here, what I say is it's spring and a not entirely young cat's anymore heart turns to murder. Corbin just wants to go out and hunt things so bad. And he was successful today, so I think he's probably sitting somewhere smug and happy that he achieved some murder. Some poor little bull or something. It didn't have a full tail. It had like a little tail stub. And a weird white patch of fur, which for a wild animal seems unusual. But I guess it's not passing on that. Zachariah M. Hello. We were talking about you and the Learn to Paint kits this weekend at Paint Club. Hopefully whoever was talking about them had enjoyed them. Using the colors from those today. And now that if we all agree that these visuals are a little better, I might do another one of the quick paints on screen, sort of a paint along for people who might enjoy that. I haven't actually tested this with little guys yet, so I don't know if the goblins or the kobolds would work. And we already did the zombies. Well, we mostly did the zombies. I do still have to finish some stuff up with the zombies. But there's a wraith that I haven't done yet. Zachariah, all good things, yes. They were feeling much more confident about the results. A dad and son working through the kits together. Oh, that's great. I love that. It always makes me happy to know that people enjoyed the kits, and enjoying them as a family is even better. Gotta make sure the young people get in the hobby, right? Or who are we gonna paint and play with in a few years? Now, I didn't paint this guy according to the kit. He is in the kit. I just, when they first started making Bones USA, so this isn't even the current formula, which is a stiffer material, the Cyocast 2 or whatever they called it, that I like better. So these are the early ones, and that, you know, some of this flash and stuff, they don't have that anymore. Reaper was still working out how to do these. But they sent the Learn to Paint kits, because they sell a lot of them, were among the first things that they switched over to Cyocast molds to do in Bones USA, which is cool because there's actually detail on these that aren't on the ones I painted, because I painted original Bones ones. Like this guy, you can see now, and I painted it black even because you can see it. He has a mustache, and that was so not in evidence in the original Bones one that I never painted that in or whatever, so it wouldn't confuse people. So now people can paint guys out of the Learn to Paint kit that are going to look better than mine. And I'm very excited about that. But anyway, Reaper sent me a whole bunch of extra of these guys. So when I was testing the super washes, and then I think I have somewhere, I have like, I guess I kind of use them as swatches. I painted 12 of them full strength out of the bottle, and then 12 of them as if the superwash were diluted at about half strength. And I had enough of these guys to do that with, because I thought they made a good... Actually, I have that. I can show you. So when you have stuff like the one coat paints, it's good to kind of swatch the, the way I do these swatches. That's great, but it's not showing me how the material settles into the crevices. So if you have something like that, you might want to do a 3D swatch, as it were. So this is the diluted red. I can't find his friend. I haven't taken pictures of these yet. That's why they're still sitting in a box next to my desk. But I do have the magenta work. So that's like the full strength Mythos magenta, and then that's diluted half and half with the brush on sealer. So when I talk about doing it watercolor style, I would like start with this and then add this one into the crevices to make more shadows if I wanted to on something that I wanted to look darker. Curse 13, the Forgotten Stash. Yes. I mean, green users didn't even remember that they sculpted a mustache on him. I know, like, when I saw the Bones ones, I'm like, oh, there's something happening on his lip. Is that a mustache? And I looked at the other ones, and I'm like, well, it is, but I feel like I'm just creating confusion if I do that, so I'm going to pretend that I don't think there's a stash there. Possibly I should redo the kits, but that sounds like a lot of work. I won't say I haven't been tempted sometimes, but I don't know if Ron would humor me. I suspect not, because it would also be extra work for him, and he is a very busy man. So this is also not the kind of sword that I am best at representing. So I'm making bad choices about where to make things brighter and darker. Apologies. We will look for a less bendy thingamabobber. Way, but oh well. If I wanted to, I could get the black paint and fix it, but I don't know if I do. just gotta move over where the shadow is a little. The orc band of the stash. Well, he doesn't have a stash. The pirate has a stash. As well as a very nice physique that you can see the muscle definition a lot better on this version too. I guess he lifts a lot of treasure chests. That's how he keeps fit. I mean, it's a motivational fitness program on its own. You know, look for giant treasure chests. Keep yourself buff. You and your bank account get more fit. Oops, I didn't catch all the other places. I will keep going on the sword, and I can. This is the downside of doing this kind of mixture, which is how I used to layer everything. Because if you goof up, you kind of have to go back to square one to fix it. So there's no going back and forth. But you get speed, and then if you are aiming for like really pretty contest level results, you can get, you know, if you do a whole bunch of different little steps, you can get some very nice transitions. It's just unforgiving in the, oh, if you missed that part, too bad, you missed that part. I think I probably needed a duller brown for this effect that I have just made a very cool looking metallic color, but not one that looks like steel. Or to add the brown layer, which is what I normally do. And we can try to do on the ogre at some point, is add a little weathering. I mean, I like this color, I just don't think it looks like steel. But it could be like a cool satin or silk color for like royalty or wizard or something sometime. I'm gonna have to remember it and just live with the fact that this guy didn't turn out that great. Well, that's steely. I mean, maybe it'll look good. We'll pretend he has some magic orc metal weapon. Because why would we play in fantasy realms other than to make rationales for why our painting didn't turn out the way we wanted? So I'm holding it upright partly for your benefit, but also because if I'm trying to paint in these brighter colors where the light would make it fall, if I hold it in the orientation where I can kind of see this is up, this is where light would be, I can just choose the places that stick out at this angle and paint those the lighter color. But also parts that stick out from this angle on this side, because he is three-dimensional and we're going to look at him from multiple sides. That is the fun of miniatures. Zachariah M. I don't always sport a stash, but when I do, I use Green Users brand stash kit. Pendrake said the pirate totes barges and lifts bales. Yes, he definitely keeps fit. I did it again and I touched it. See, now this one's like almost sticking straight up, so I kind of have to pick a side that I think the light would be coming from. And these I can even, go down the sides and the edges a bit. I don't know if I'd bother with the ones that are on his boots. Doing that because we want the focus to be up top here. And he's not a super fancy guy. I mean, I'm just like an insanely slow painter, as if you've been here before, you know that. And I've just learned to live with it. But this technique doesn't have to be slow if you are not an insanely slow painter. And if you're not painting a guy with like 4 million spikes. It's really such a lot of spikes. Now I'm trying to remember which spikes I already got. I think I got all those. Alright, so now pure, what did I call this? Blade steel, right? Yes, blade steel. Just straight up. And then maybe he doesn't get the like top level highlight, because does he keep his gear clean enough for that? Probably not. And I guess let me know if it starts looking more steel-like now, or if the brown is just in there too much brown. It just makes it look like a different metal instead of dirty steel. All right, just trying to find a good angle too. So I want to get the line where kind of the darker parts meet the lighter parts a little crisper. Then it gets quicker as you go because you're covering smaller and smaller areas too. Just as with regular old layering. So no opinions yet on whether this looks more steely or more not steely. So here I want to emphasize that these spikes are really squared off and dangerous and painful looking by getting the edges side of my brush. And I think there you can start seeing the effect of more shadow in areas that are lighter. And just place this silver. Nope, that silver is totally dead from before, but I can get more. Because I'll just go ahead and do it on the back a little so we can see even brighter reflection points. Really get those metallic little hotspot look. So I'm not relying solely on the light to create those. I create some of it myself. Because, you can't always rely on others to do the work for you. You can't always rely on light to do the work for you, at least. And then I have an idea for how to maybe improve his sword just a little. And the other guy's pirate sword. Because the area where there's like really patchy shadow is just not looking great to me. Like it gets the idea of the different values across, but it doesn't look good. It looks patchy instead of like, oh, it's just not shining there. But I think we're going to try a metal glaze. Let's see if that fixes it. I'm going to do this middle step on a couple more places. Wait, no, I'm supposed to be up to the straight steel on those places, I think. A little bit, because it's going to be good to have a lot of shiny right beside his face. Or at least some shiny right beside his face. This is that filigree silver for the brighter hot spots. All right, so now let me try the fix on the sword. I'm going to get my, I think I'm going to use my in-between stage where it's got a little bit of the brown in it. It is, if you use this stuff, whether you're using it as sealer or the way I'm doing it as a medium, always shake it. Like every single time you use it, shake it and shake it more than you would a paint. So the reason this is kind of matte is because it's got little particles in it that break up the light. Those little particles are heavier than the binder. If you don't distribute them, they will gather like in the last third of the bottle, and you could risk making your thing look a little frosted. You know how you get that white kind of like, if you see around the cap there, if you've ever had kind of white frosting in the crevices or elsewhere on a miniature that you've sealed, it can happen with spray sealer too. Typically what's going on when it's spray sealer is that it's too much. Like you've put on so much sealer that there's not enough variation in the particles anymore for it to keep seeming, for it to break up the light the same way. So a good solution is just to wait and do it again. I think sometimes that fixes it. Is that what fixes it? I'm blanking now. Don't do whatever I said. All right, I want this to be fairly thin. That is fairly thin. Yeah, we'll call it thin enough. Normally I like to test a little more, but I am eager to see if it works. So my idea is that because there's like no flake in some parts, it looks weird. It doesn't look weird if there's no flake on the underside of this, because that's like a really shadowed area, but the sword is not totally shadowed. So it's weird if parts of it are shining and parts of it are not. Nope, that is way too thick. We'll use the eraser, also known as a damp brush, and put a bunch more of this in. So I don't want to like totally paint over that darker spot. I just want to get enough flake in there that it doesn't look super weird. And I think my idea is working. Yeah, see now it looks more just like a, more just like a dark spot that is reflecting something dark or isn't getting as much light. We compare it to this side, Patchy Nightmare, because I've unified the finish a little without changing the value too much. I think that fixed it. Or at least improved it. I'm not saying it's amazing. In no way am I claiming that this is an amazing sword that I've painted here today. And I never did really put anything on there, so we'll just put that there. And I can compare it to this guy's sword where I had the same problem. And I can do the same fix. My problem here is that I had a different color mix, so I can't just take that one. I'm just going to get straight blade steel. Thin it down just a little, I think. And this might be another way to do kind of a silk or satin effect as well. So if anyone came in a bit later, and you've seen the show before, I'm testing out a new setup. Or if you're watching this on VOD, of course. Or if you're watching this on Reaper's YouTube channel. If you have opinions about whether it's better or not, feel free to let me know by personal message or in the chat. I mean the comments. Because you won't have access to chat. Of course, people who are here right now are welcome to give feedback as well. Here, I'm not putting it all over. So on this guy, the smaller plane is facing up, and I did put that glaze on the ends a little because it's getting a bit more light. Here, the smaller plane is facing down, and while there would be some reflection from light that's bouncing off the ground, it doesn't look weird that there's some really dark parts there. So I'm not going over it with the stuff. Zachariah M says the new setup seems to be doing great. Oh, thanks for the feedback, Zachariah. I feel like I did not get enough of the glaziness there. So where are we time-wise? Oh, we still have a little bit of time so I could try to paint more of that. But I'm just going to check in for a minute on these skulls. So I did one coat of thinned down, where is it? Superwash Bone Shade. But I think that it needs a little more darkness in the eye sockets. So I'm going to put in straight Superwash Bone Shade in some of the crevices or lower facing places. And then I will go back to finishing that Portworx Metallics. Spots like this can also sometimes, you know, the water forms a meniscus, like here it went around the edge and it didn't go right in the middle. So sometimes you need to go back in. Make sure they're little nose sockets. What do we call it that? I feel like I don't know what that hole is where the base of the nose. Not that I know a ton of anatomy terms, so I'm not sure why I'm super shocked I don't know that one. Someday I will study more anatomy, but doesn't necessarily mean I'll learn the terms even if I study it. Because you saw me trying to name a movie earlier, and that went really great for me. Give those a little more shadow. Pendrake says the autofocus on the new cam is impressive. That is good to hear, because sometimes I look up and I'm like, oh, is it in focus? I can't, when the brush is on it, I can't entirely tell. All right. Unfortunately, I did not save my mix. So we go back in time a little and make a new one. I feel like it's been a while since I had like Reaper news to share. I don't seem to be in the loop at the moment. You all probably know more Reaper news than I do. Now I'm knocking the lights with my visor head. What else does he have to do on him? I did get this a little. It's more, I didn't mix a lot of paint, so I better try to be faster than I was before. Well, there's the chainmail, of course. I probably should have mixed more paint. So now that I know I can do that glaze thing, I can be a little patchy with some of these and make more shadow. Maybe I need a bendier brush. Green User says the subtlety of the colors really shows. Yeah, I think the color is a lot. Like, it's not exactly the same color. I think this is bumping up the saturation a little. I did take it down even a little. Particularly on reds. I might have to go through. There was like a separate channel, I think, where I could customize my fiddling. I may have to go through and tone down the reds a little. Not the first camera I've had that does that. But overall, it seems much more accurate and like it shows some of the color stuff that I talk to you all about that you probably can't see until I post pictures. So it's not like straight up dry brushing, but I'm kind of more damp brushing. Just trying to catch the tops of the texture. Okay, but maybe the brush should be slightly drier than that. Lucky for me, that is a place where I'm going to want more metal look. Because when you have that, really hot spot, metallic metal glow, where it's reflecting the light like a lot, it does glare out detail. It's like overexposing a photograph. So I can fake that in by just making that a highlight area now where I goofed. But here, I kind of want to not goof as much so that we can make his little butt. There's actual the little butt cheeks are sculpted in, and I would like to bring out that attention to detail that the sculptor had. And instead put an unnecessary highlight on the side. But we'll probably just ignore that one. Chainmail was like the first thing I ever painted, I think, where you painted it black and then you did the dry brush, and I was like, it's like magic. I think that's when they got me. That was just too much fun watching it go from something plain colored to something where all that cool sculpted detail showed. It was more interesting. That's still one of my favorite parts of painting, those moments of transformation where it goes from being like just one color to having shadows to adding color detail or whatever. Just the various moments of transformation are kind of the parts that really engage me, I think, in the process. And I think it's good to know what you like about the process. I know I've mentioned this before, but it is very important. Because the length of time between the idea of I want to paint this cool dragon that looks like this, or I want to play this army, or scare my players with this big bad guy, or whatever. The length of time between that notion in your brain and when you finish making the thing is quite long. So you have to have something you enjoy about the making to keep you involved, is what I think. It can't all be about the end result because there's too much time between starting and the end result for that to be your only sense of satisfaction and enjoyment. So I'm not even going to touch down here with this lighter color. Like that's supposed to be a shadow area. It does not need straight up blade silver. But his little butt cheeks definitely do. Did not put some on this side. Okay. Get those edges. Sculpted Butt Cheeks was my Aerosmith cover band in college. I mean, I've seen weirder band names, in all honesty. And this is something that's easier with the full-size palettes that Anne and I use. They've got those that section that's flat that you can put stuff on. Or I guess if I put it there, I'd have had more space. Because I feel like I need to do the filigree Was that the filigree silver though? I'm not sure that it was now. I think I picked up the wrong container. Hendrik says the cam is doing a good job. When the brush heads for the palette, it focuses on what I just painted. Well, that is good. Chris 13 does not hate sculpted butt cheeks. I mean, I guess I'm insulting him too. His butt cheeks aren't little. He's worked the glutes. He doesn't skip leg day. Well, looking at his arms, he doesn't skip any day. So I think that I'm happy with that for the chainmail. I didn't quite finish these millions of spikes. Oh, or his, I'm sure there's a name for this that I don't know. Because it's previously established, knowing the names of things is not really my jam. Right, blade steel is just getting a little too goopy. Even for just finishing off a few little things. Oh, we got little bolts, or I guess they're called rivets. Well, don't know if I got shield handle with the middle color. So that's a cylinder, so I'm highlighting it down the middle because that's how we see light reflecting off cylinders. And then some of that filigree. Which is also getting a little crispy because it's not actually in a palette section, but gonna live with that. And I think he's pretty much done. Get the eyes and the teeth. He might actually even be, I think, the prototype super washes. So the colors were a little bit different and they weren't as intense. I'm gonna put that glaze thing on his gorget, whatever this thing is. Let's see if someone in the chat knew what it was. Nope. Or if you did, you're having more fun watching me flail about in ignorance. So he's gonna call him done. in the end it did end up looking like steel. Well, let's compare it to the blue one. That's like a warm steel color next to a cool one. And then we'll get Mr. Pirate back. Let's swap sides. And that's neutral. So neutral, cool, warm versions of steel, all using the same metallic, just different colors in the shadows. And then he had purple in the shadows of his bronze, and this guy had, this is a different bronze too. Last time I painted, I wanted a warmer color than this dragon bronze, so I went over to my other shelf and grabbed something instead of just using two paint kit ones. But there's like a little, you can see the purple a little bit in the shadows, and I think that it works really well with non-metallic gold too, or even blonde hair, a little bit of purple. I could maybe make his sand look less lame with just a smidge of purple, but I think we're at time. And I probably have some cat thing that needs to be done for the cats. So almost got through the 3 of the guys that I was testing the super washes on. I was thinking that I would work on his base too, but now that I think about it, this is very narrow of a base for this volume of figure, so he might need to get put aside for a show where I talk about integrating integrating integral bases. Yes, that. So I will probably wait on that. I was gonna like dry brush some parts white and then go in with the super washes and do some variations, but I think that I will wait instead. So come over here and you can see nothing because there are too many gadgets now. But somewhere I'm there. I'm sure that Quindy's going to find us a raid so that we can continue having good hobby fun. And I will hopefully see you next week, because I'm hoping that my back is done with being silly. You're gonna go check out Art of Mike Disney, say hi, and spread the Reaper love. Thanks for coming.